What is up, everybody? I'm NoLucksGiven, and today we are going to be doing a Solforge Fusion deck opening here for the very first time. My very first Solforge Fusion half deck from the Kickstarter version of the starter deck, and we just rolled a die at the end of the last video to decide which one we want to start with. But let me know in the comments down below which of these three you'd like to see me open in the next video. And I'll probably record them all right now, but you guys can pick which one I will be posting next, just for transparency there, and we'll see what is in them. But we're going to open all of them eventually, and then you guys can tell me which ones you want to see me play together, and yeah, which ones you think are good and stuff like that. But for right now, we're going to get into my very first deck. I don't know how I'm going to lay this out just yet necessarily, but we'll figure that out as we get into all of this stuff here. So we see it's got a little plastic tab here. I have to imagine this is pretty easy to open. Yeah, we can just get our finger under here and open this up. And I can probably pull this in some capacity. Trying to be delicate, but let me get them cards. Let me get into those Solforge Fusion cards. All right, so missed a little bit on the corner there, but that is fine. So what we are going to have here, and I'm going to pile these out, and I'm also trying not to get spoiled, but we can see as we slowly fan out the decks here that we should be able to separate these pretty cleanly into the three different piles of cards. Now, the one thing that I am noticing though is these don't seem to be exactly in order. So I might have to go through and just make sure these are ordered exactly how I want them, and then go from there. I just flashed the QR code too, so I'll have to make sure to register this deck online before I post this video. Oh, and I didn't want to look at that either, because that'll be a slight spoiler for what is in the deck on the back of the Forgeborn card. I guess we can take a look at the Forgeborn card as well. I've got that slightly off camera for right now. I think I want to look at the cards first because of that, and let me just line this up a little bit better here. Okay, great. But this is the level 1 Apocrymancer, level 2 Apocrymancer, and then level 3 Palladium Hivemind. So I'm hoping that Apocrymancer is maybe next or in the back. All right, so we've got to find that, and it looks like it's right here. So I'm hoping that maybe we can do something like you could do with I think people would do this with Pokemon packs. I'm going to take the top 3 cards and put them in the back. And let me just check another pile to see if that will work. Here's the Palladium Hivemind. That's 4th from the back. Oh, maybe it's just the... No, that doesn't make sense. All right, Palladium Hivemind again, 4th from the back. But it doesn't look like these are super lined up in order, unfortunately. Yeah, the order seems to be a little bit random, which I think is a little bit unfortunate, but, you know, they had to do what they had to do. Trying to think of the best way to handle this then. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep all 3 of these stacks off screen, and I will just bring the cards over and hopefully they line up well enough. So let's see. Yeah, it looks like the second card in each deck, if I move these down a little bit, the second card in each deck is the same for now. So maybe we'll be okay. Bring these back into place. And let's talk about our first card here, the Apocrymancer. So it's a 3/5. Almost sounded like Southern. 3/5, 5/7, 7 tan with Stealth. And whenever you replace a creature in another lane, deal 3 damage to a creature or player. So we know that Aloyan does have a big replacement theme, especially with the Gizmo minions really concerned about replacing things. And this is a nice little payoff card for it. So that's pretty interesting. If we can find another deck to pair with this that says... Then, okay, sorry, I just kind of got distracted because I was thinking, does this work with Botanimate? Choose an enemy creature. The opponent replaces it with a wisp. I think no. I think no because your opponent is doing the replacing, not you. But if we can find one of our other half decks that creates a bunch of tokens, then this could be a good thing to pair with it, because Apocrymancer, in that it is a rare, is probably, or I'm not sure exactly what the rarity symbols are. I think this is called a rare, maybe it's called an uncommon. Apologies for that, but it's probably a pretty good payoff card. One thing that's kind of interesting in that, I haven't played too much Solforge Fusion, and I can see, like, within a given set of cards, which ones are going to be better or worse than each other. If you just, like, have your 5-card hand, it's easier to make that decision. But this being the very first card that we're looking at in a vacuum, kind of tough to just gauge it on those stats alone. But the stats look fine. The fact that it is a 3/5, and then the fact that it has stealth as well is really interesting, because that means that even if you have the Forge, you'll still potentially have a turn to make use of it. So that could be pretty cool. But let's go ahead and set that aside here. The Apocrymancer. I'm just going to drag these down, actually. And our next card that we are looking at is... Oops. There we go. Okay, charge-plated reinforcement. So if you take a look at the rarity symbol here, that means that it is a rare card or an uncommon card. I'll just call them rares for now. I'll say that purple are rares, with green a common modifier. So reinforcements, I think, is a rare card, and the charge-plated part of it is a common modifier. But we can see this card is pretty interesting and actually, I think, quite good. So yeah, I don't want to leak any future cards. Let's go ahead and just show the current cards on the screen at any given time. I think this is just going to be the easiest way to do this. And I'm already noticing, yeah, I guess I should show when I take these charge-plated reinforcements off the top, I'm seeing a little bit of different cards underneath. So we will have to reconcile that stuff as we move on here. But for now, charge-bladed reinforcements, I think, is something that I can really get behind. So it is going to be a 1/1, then a 1/4, and then a 25/26. So this is pretty cool. I don't know if that is both the charge-plated and the reinforcements both kind of playing into each other well, but this seems like a really, really great card that if you can ever play it, if you ever need to finish off one of your opponent's things with a 1-attack unit because they just barely had it survive, and if at the same time giving your adjacent creatures +3 health works out for you, that is going to be really, really good to play. You'll probably try to just upgrade one of these 2 levels as well, and then you have a huge, huge payoff from a 25/26, an absolutely massive unit. I think that's probably going to be one of the bigger cards that are in this deck, or maybe any deck. 25/26 is really, really big for Solforge Fusion. It's kind of like a Bright Steel Colossus or Krogius kind of effect that we've got going on here. But I think that this card is really good. So I'm happy to have some effects like this, especially because, as we will probably see, there are typically ways to upgrade cards without playing them in Aloyan. So if we have any of those effects in this deck, that could be really, really good. And I am noticing that the Forgeborn does have that. Maybe that is a good time to transition over to the Forgeborn for a second. So we've got the Forgeborn, and then we also have the Forge token that comes with this deck. So 2 of the decks came with Forge tokens. One side is colored in, one side is not, to represent who has the Forge. And then we've got Steel Rosetta. Let's zoom in on her a little bit and her abilities. Now that's a little bit too much there. Let's just work with that for right now. So Steel Rosetta, her level 2 ability is play a Gizmo minion, upgrade a level 1 card in your hand. I like that as far as just having like free upgrades for the reinforcements. That could be good. And then her level 3 ability is that she has the level 3 ability of your other Forgeborn that is from your other half deck. That's really cool. That gives a lot of flexibility, and I could definitely see playing with Steel Rosetta because I like the level 2 ability enough, the ability to upgrade, and the level 3 is just going to have a lot of flexibility in terms of what decks we pair with this. And then repurpose, choose a creature. If it's replaced this turn, you may reanimate it. So there we go, some of those replacement synergies that I was talking about. A really big payoff from there. It is... yeah, it's tough. It's tough to really grasp how powerful that is. When you reanimate something, it's not going to be keeping any of the buffs or anything that you've already put on it, but imagine your opponent does a bunch of work to take out your 25-26, and then you just say, all right, well, I'm going to make another one now. And that would be pretty devastating. So I do like Steel Rosetta, and I think that she might be pretty good for us. And then again, on the back side of that card, we'll look at that after this, but that is going to have all of the cards that are in the deck. So next, let's take a look at Drix, and I'm going to have to find the level 3 version. Okay, I can actually see that it's just right here. So it was the next card down. Maybe there's just a little bit out of order. I'm seeing Energy Surge on the top of all 3 piles at this point. So we might be able to piece this all together. But I'm going to shuffle War Machine to the back. Maybe just a few things got out of place here. But now we've got Drix, and Drix allows you to play Gizmo minions, which are very good in terms of synergizing with our other replace card, because Gizmo minions, let me see if I have one right here. Yeah, I should have one available just so that I can show that off. And those are going to have that bonus effect when they get replaced. I did decide to put the minions inside of this bag that came with the die, but let's grab one of those Gizmo minions. So we've got this. This is what Drix is going to be creating. This is what Steel Rosetta is going to be creating as well, is a Gizmo minion. And the level 1 and level 2 both play a Gizmo minion. The level 3 plays a Mega Gizmo, which is instead a 6/6 that gives the replaced creature, the creature that replaces this, +6/+6. So that is what we're working with Drix. You can activate a card the turn it comes out. So you can consider Drix like a 3/6 in stats, and considering that there's other synergies involved with that too, and the fact that you get to take up multiple lanes, that can be pretty good. And I'm comparing like 3/6 to the Apocrymancer, which is a 3/5, obviously with an ability as well. But yeah, that makes the stats overall pretty reasonable. The level 2 is going to be a 4/10, but excuse me. Also has another ability. Now I'm not cutting these off, am I? No, let's move these up a little bit though. Also has another ability that whenever another one of your creatures replaces a creature, give it +2/+2. And that is going to be super useful. I'm just making sure I'm like recording on everything because I'm using multiple devices here. That would be embarrassing if I wasn't. But whenever one of your creatures replaces a creature, whenever another one of your creatures replaces a creature, so it doesn't count for Drix itself, give it an additional +2/+2. So now we're really looking at this Drix giving, effectively being a 6/12 worth of stats, and starts to look a little bit more powerful even. And then the level 3 Drix making a 6/6, and then giving +4/+4. So this is effectively a 14/20, which are pretty good numbers if you consider that as a +10/+10. And then, of course, you might be able to use it multiple times as well, because your opponent is also going to have to answer this other threat, this other unit that you just gave +10/+10. So you'll typically want to play Drix as your first card in the turn, activate it, create a gizmo, and then replace the gizmo with another card in your hand as the second action. But that could all be really sweet, and yeah, could definitely be really strong to do. So I think that this is pretty good. I mean, it's nice to just have some of the more complicated cards. One thing that I saw a dev say on Discord the other day is the rarer cards are going to be compensated by having less stats. They're going to have lower total numbers, but as a compensation, they're going to be more interesting cards. They're going to be more complex cards. And a lot of times with that complexity, you can also find yourself just having more options, and that can also generate its own form of being powerful. And here we have some examples of some upgrade cards. Like I said, that is a big Aloyan theme as well. So this could be a really cool way to grab the reinforcements. To grab an upgrade on reinforcements is to use Energy Surge, which uses two things that we've already talked about a little bit. Upgrade a card in your hand, then discard it, and you may play a Gizmo minion on the level 1 version. And then the level 2 gives you a Mega Gizmo minion, so that's the 6/6 version, and you can upgrade a card in your hand, then discard it, same thing there. The level 3 version deviates a little bit. You can play a Mega Gizmo minion, upgrade a card in your hand, then play it for free. So this is definitely another card that has a big payoff. You don't want to go too heavy into all of the payoff cards and not develop your board, but if you do find the means to play this and play it well, this could also be, because we've got some Energy Surges here, which is a pretty powerful spell, this could be a deck that we want to pair with a Tempest deck, which often finds ways to make spells get cast for free. So yeah, the level 3 version of this obviously being really strong, the level 2 versions not being super powerful, but can still do some interesting work, especially with things like Drix or other things like that, the Apocrymancer, that really care about upgrading your cards. So I like that. Some cool synergies so far as well. We can play the... Now, I believe if we look at Apocrymancer... No, okay, so I believe what you could do is you could play Energy Surge, make a Gizmo minion, and then use that Gizmo minion and directly replace it with Apocrymancer, and I believe you'd then be able to shoot something for 3. Because this just says, oh, no. Okay, it says another. I was looking for the word another. I didn't see it, but it does say another lane. But still, you could potentially play an Energy Surge on one turn, and then the following turn play Apocrymancer, followed by something else, like charge-plated reinforcements, replacing the Gizmo, and then you'll be able to get that. So it's nice that we do have some Gizmo Generation in this deck as well, because that is all going to be important too. So I am happy to pick up an Energy Surge. That seems good. And the next thing that we're going to look at is one more spell, and that is Force Field. And this is kind of an interesting one. We might have to go back and look at some previous cards, but I think I know the answer to this. Force Field, give a creature +6 armor this turn, so armor's like temporary health for the turn. If you play this on a warrior, it gets +6 attack as well, and then +10 and +15. And I don't think that this is a particularly powerful spell, but if we have a few other warriors, which I think that the reinforcements, the reinforcements is indeed going to be a warrior, and that just gives us something else to look for when we take a look at our other half deck. So I'll definitely make note if any other future cards in this deck are warriors, but for right now we only have the one. So I'm not particularly excited with Force Field. But I will say, like, using Force Field as an underdrop, which is a term from Solforge that we used to throw around back in the day, basically a card that works just as well when you don't level it up. You can use a level 1 Force Field on level 3 of the game to save a level 3 creature, and that could be a pretty big tempo advantage. It effectively allows you to get a level 3 card from your level 1 spell. So that could be pretty sweet for us. And now we are going to take a look at, I keep grabbing the level 2 versions first, but Orion Battle Droid. And as I'm looking at this card, I cannot quite tell. I'm going to cheat a little bit here. Okay, yeah, I think I actually made a mistake in my previous video where I described Palladium Hinderer as being a forged card, because it's not. And I'm noticing that Orion Battle Droid is also not a forged card. This is just a common. There's not, like, you can't get a charge-plated Battle Droid, is what I'm getting at. Orion Battle Droid is going to look the same each time. It is a 8-1 with 3 armor, a 10-1 with 5 armor, and a 12-1 with 12 armor. And similarly to Force Field, I think that the Battle Droid is a great underdrop, but I don't think it's particularly powerful otherwise. But still, an underdrop can be pretty good, and it can also be good to... So this has permanent armor. You'll get to make use of that each turn, and that can be good if you're able to, like, pump it up in any capacity, just because you'll get multiple uses out of the armor. So that is somewhat interesting. It is good to have a little bit of a mix of cards that are good to level and cards that are just straight up powerful, and that will allow you to do some nice things. Maybe you just get ahead with the Battle Droid and you use that kind of as a little bit of a tempo advantage to then be able to play like Energy Surge and get ahead on leveling some powerful cards in your deck. Though I will say one thing that could be really cool, I talked about just giving this a little bit more health, doesn't really need attack. One way that you could give this a little bit more health is with charge-plated reinforcements. So that could be a reasonable combo in its own right. So I don't hate that, actually. And then we are going to bring out the Palladium Hinderer, which was the card on the front of our packs. And looks like, oh no, everything's not quite in order. But yeah, it was just that War Machine that was kind of out of place. And then the one deck starting 3 cards deep. But other than that, it looks like everything is kind of lining up here. So this was on the front of the pack, but I actually didn't read it yet. So it's a 2-8, then 4-10, then 8-12. So I think a little bit weaker than some of the cards that we've seen, but it has an ability to give a creature +3 armor this turn, +7 armor, and +10 armor. You may move that creature to any lane if you have another mage in play. And I do not believe that we have seen any mages yet. I will take a little bit of a look. No, that's Metamind, Scientist, and Warrior. Oh, Apocrymancer, also a warrior. I was not expecting that. This seemed more like a mage to me, but Apocrymancer is a warrior. So that's nice to notice. And then as I'm looking at the cards over to my left a little bit, I do see that we've got some more warriors and some more mages coming. I don't think that the mage part of the ability is super necessary. Though it looks like it will have some synergies with some things coming up in an interesting way. I don't think that this card is particularly powerful, but it is, yeah, it's somewhat interesting. I'm also just noticing here, one thing that I wanted to point out. On the bottom of each card, you will also see a number. So this one is 669. And what is nice about that is that tells you which number, like it gives you a little bit of an idea of the rarity of this card. Every card that's printed will have a unique number. Every Palladium Hinderer will have a unique number, and that will be kind of a signifier of rarity and show you how many of each of those have been printed. And if we take a look, so these are all 725s. All of the cards are going to have the same number if they're the same card, because they're all considered one card. The energy, or the, what is that called? The force field, 700. So all of these are from like around the same point. 800 on the energy surge, 400 on the Drix, so about half as common potentially. And that's the Forge token. And then only 26 of these charge-plated reinforcements. That's what I was saying. The Forge creatures wind up being a little bit rarer just because they're made up of two different halves. So you can definitely see that one is a lot rarer, only 26 of those. And then this one being similar rarity to Drix, there's about 400 of those. So that is something else interesting that you can keep in mind here. But Palladium Hinderer, just a common card. I'm not particularly impressed with it, but we'll see that there are some synergies with it coming up. It's fine. If you factor in the armor that it brings, and moving can definitely be interesting, but with the armor that it brings, it is effectively a 211, a 417, and an 822. I think still those numbers are a little bit unimpressive, but the fact that it does have a deployability will give it a little bit more utility. And maybe if we pair it with a deck with enough mages, it will be good enough to rock. So next we're going to take a look at War Machine, which is a robot warrior that cares about replacing. So pretty reasonable stat line. Oh, let me switch these back. Pretty reasonable stat line, especially when you compare it to the Palladium Hinderer that we just saw, but it gets a lot bigger if you replace something. So 210, 410, 610. And if it replaces a creature, you give it +4, +6, and +10 attack. It's also a warrior, so it can play into those things. But yeah, basically you're hoping to replace a Gizmo with the War Machine, and then it is going to be an 8-12. That can be pretty powerful. I believe that I had this in a game or two against Kaleri, and it was a little bit scary. It does fall off a little bit, which does make it an awkward card, to be totally honest. And as we're getting into more awkward cards with the Force Field and the Palladium Hinderer and the Orion Battle Droid, I'm getting a little bit less excited about the competitive prospects for this deck, but I think that there's still some fun things to play around with in it. But this is kind of an underdrop, but also you have to replace something. It will work well with the Steel Rosetta's ability on the final level, and then like a 16-10 is fine. But you'll also have to replace something to get any value out of that. So it can be a little bit of an awkward card to play. Maybe if we see like one more effect that can generate some gizmos coming up, that could be good. And then of course, our hero power can generate gizmos on the second level, so maybe not all hope is lost. We've only got 2 more cards to look at, and they are actually both mages. So that is kind of interesting to note here. And they're kind of going to be synergistic all with each other too, as we note that. So first up here, we've got Palladium Simulacrum. and that is going to be a 2/6, 4/9, 8/12 with mobility 1. Okay. This is cool. And you can also immediately activate it and move it, I believe. If I understand the game correctly, I believe that you can move this on the first turn. And this doesn't have the word another on it. So you can immediately play this and move it, and then all of a sudden it's a 4/6, 7/9, and 13/12. Okay, this card's pretty good. Definitely, I'm not sure if it really needs the synergy with our other mage, but our other mage does move things. So that's kind of interesting. And will definitely just be, I think, a strong card for us. It's pretty strong on all 3 levels, and then the ability to move can allow it to push through damage. If your opponent can't take it out right away, then you're even going to get through more damage as you move again. And yeah, this seems really good. Pretty tough to play around, especially like I'm thinking you play it while you have the Forge. Your opponent tries to play into it, but you can move it either way. So the interesting thing here is that if your opponent has a Palladium Simulacrum, let's see if we can set up a little bit of a battlefield here. And let's just say you've got 2 different cards that you'll want to play. You'll actually want to play your cards here and here in the lanes adjacent to the Simulacrum, so that way you can catch it when it moves. Because otherwise it'll have to stay in the lane, and then it won't get that buff from its ability. So that's kind of an interesting strategical thing to note. But I think that this is a pretty strong card. Mobility, always a strong effect, and it's just got good stats on all 3 levels. So I am excited about that. We're turning some things around again, and it looks like we've got one more potentially really strong card. I'm seeing a bunch of abilities on this one, and another number 25, so a little bit of a rarer card here. And we're going to take a look at the Recycling Alamancer. So this is a forged card. This is a recycling modifier to an Alamancer. So the recycling is probably this deploy ability. If this replaced a creature, give it +2, +5, and +10. The stats are fine if you are replacing a creature, and then it also gets to have an activated ability, the Alamancer part of it, the mage part of it, deal 1 damage to a creature for each mage you have in play, 2, and then 3. So if this is able to replace a Gizmo, which a lot of things in this deck want to replace, and a lot of them want to replace a Gizmo, but let's even just say it replaces something else. Let's say it replaces Reinforcements, the 1/1 that doesn't do too much on the early game. It's going to be a 4/5, an 8/9, and a 14/15. But you also kind of have to add the activated ability onto the front end of that, which I think effectively makes this a 5/5, this kind of like a 10/9, and then this one, I think basically you could count it as a 17/15, just in terms of the total stats that they bring. So I think that this might have saved it a little bit. I think that we found 2 pretty powerful cards towards the end of this. If we want to take a look and rate this deck a little bit, I would say that the Alamancer is, I'd like to, I guess, make like 4 piles of cards, but let's just go for 3. We'll say good, great, and not so great. Palladium Simulacrum, I think, is going to be a great card. The Alamancer is going to be a good card. War Machine, it's tough. I think I would put it in the not so good category, to be totally honest, just because of the play around part of it that you have to work with. And probably put the Hindermind there as well. They're just not things that I'm going to get super excited about. Battle Droid, interestingly, because of its use as an underdrop, I think I'd put that in the good category. of cards that we're working with. Force Field, not going to be so good, but again, can be an underdrop just in a slightly different way. I think that the Battle Droid will more often be useful than the Force Field. So going to put that first. Energy Surge, I'm going to go ahead and put that in good. It's a little bit risky to play it, but I think that we can, I think that we'll wind up playing it most of the time. Drix is great. Definitely happy about that one. Charge Plated Reinforcements, I think, is also great, both in terms of being a card that we can replace and just being a huge threat in the end game. And then Apocrymancer, also think that that one is great. So if we take a look at just the overall distribution of the deck, we've got 3 mech cards, 3 cards that I would consider pretty good, and then our biggest category is going to be cards that I'm pretty excited about playing. So ultimately, like, where would you rate this deck? Let's say if we wanted to use a 20, or let's just say you could rate a deck out of 10. Each of these would give a point, and then each of these would give half a point. So I'm rating this deck a 5.5 out of 10, just in terms of overall power level. But you do need a little bit of column A and column B in the deck. If your deck was just all great setup all-stars, it wouldn't function. You do need your battle droids, you do need your force fields, just in terms of being underdrops. Interestingly, like Palladium Hinderer doesn't have an ability that cares about what level your creatures are, right? This just says give any creature +3 armor. Give any creature +7 armor. So these can be used effectively as underdrops as well. They're not going to be as strong as Force Field in the underdrop capacity. Then War Machine is just a little bit awkward. But yeah, all of these cards have some really cool uses, and I am excited to play with them. Let me know how you would rate this deck out of 10. I just kind of came up with this rating system on the fly here. Maybe that's not totally the fairest way to rate it. And let me know in the comments down below which video you would like to see next. I've got 3 more half decks here, 1 of each of the other different factions. I want to break through and do 1 deck of each faction, and then I'll move on to my booster boxes that I have. But do you want to see me talk about the Necrium deck, the Utera deck, or the Tempest deck? You can also just say black/purple, green, red, depending on which one you want to see. I'll take that as an appropriate comment as well. But that is going to be it for me today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I'm NoLucksGiven. Peace.